Hello, everyone. Very nice to see you all here. Let's wait a few more minutes for Hoa to join us, for more people to join us, but I'm so happy to see that so many people came here. Hi, Hoa.
Hey Kate, how are you?
Hello. I'm very good. Super excited about the topic and the webinar that we are going to start in a few moments. I would say let's wait one more minute for more people to
Totally.
join.
Yeah,
But we have a lot of people that are really curious about the topic. So I'm very happy about that.
yeah, I can see the list still growing, so let's give it a few minutes more.
Okay, I think we can start. There is a lot to cover today, so I think we can start. Hello. So just to let you know, guys, this webinar is recorded or being recorded. So we will share with all of you the recording afterwards. You will be able to go through that once again. We will also share the presentation that Hoa will present with all of you, so you can deep dive into the topic and then come to us with questions if you have any. Your microphones and cameras are off for the webinar because it's a webinar, not a meeting on Teams. But feel free to chat or there is a section with Q&A, question and answers, when you can ask us anything. And we will be very happy to tell you more and answer your question. So I will share my screen right now. Perfect. Do you see it, Hoa? Let me know, please.
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. Okay, so let's start. First of all, I'm super excited about the topic because I think um, there is not enough understanding of the tail spend problem in the market. I don't think we talk enough about that. And actually, the big list of participants of this webinar confirms that there is a lot of interest into the topic. So we will be very happy to answer all the questions you might have. So what we will talk today, we want to cover the tail spend topic, like end to end. I know we have only 1 hour, so it will be pretty challenging, but we will do our best to do that. We will start with our expertise and actually why we feel that we are good people to talk about that. I will tell you more about our expertise, about our clients, about SDI in general, as a quick introduction to our services. Then we will dive into the tail spend challenges because we have a lot of clients. We support a lot of clients with their spend problems, and they share with us their challenges, their struggles that they have. So we will cover that because you can find yourself also in one of those examples that we will use, and we will give you more information how they tackle the taste spend challenge and the problem, how they solve that, or how we help them to solve that. Then we will go through the ways how you can approach the tail spend topic in your organization, because the truth is there is no shortcut. There is no one, magic wand that when the button that you click and all the tail problem will be solved. Uh, it's a complex topic, and there are few ways to approach it. I don't want to say which one is the best, because every company is different, every industry is different. So the tailspin solution has to be customized for every company differently. So we will cover that as well. How will give you a quick overview of all the tailspin solutions that are now on the market, and giving you examples, how you can use all of them, and which one will solve which problem for you. And then I hope we will have enough time. We will see. We will love to go through the case study, and show you how we solve the tail spend problem at one of our clients. So, quick introduction who we are. We are SDI, so supporting our clients for more than 30 years on the market. We do focus on procurement solutions. So as you can see here, 90% of our staff are purely focused on procurement services. And they are truly experts in that. They are sourcing experts, they are procurement operational experts, and our clients can tell you how much they appreciate our people expertise. We are global, so we are in we are supporting more than 70 countries globally. And yeah, we are supporting. There is not a single country globally when we cannot support our clients. So let's quickly jump to the next topic. And I want to start with a question to you, Hoa. What is the biggest or most common challenges that companies that you support are struggling with about the tail spend?
Totally. Thank you, Kate, and hi, everyone. I'm Joaquin Morales, Senior Director of Procurement Strategy and Delivery with SDI. As Kate mentioned, we will be walking you today through what we consider to be the tailspin challenges, solutions, and processes. So feel free to drop any questions you might have with the Q&A option. We'll try to address as many inquiries as possible. So going to your question, Kate, we see these challenges across all customers and even potential customers when we are being invited to RFIs or RFPs processes. And this will link afterwards to the different options that the market is offering these days. The first one and most common one is like procurement structures do not have enough bandwidth to manage all their suppliers, not just tail, but in general. The procurement structures tend to be very small. And when companies grow, the structure remains the same. And that's when they have to start dealing with more and more suppliers. The less time you have to dedicate to building a proper strategy for your procurement division, the more the tail starts to grow, because no one can oversee that. You cannot oversee the strategy, and that's when these problems start to happen. Typically, when companies try to put some kind of control for their tail spend, those solutions are not very cost efficient. So they said like, hey, it's taking me a lot of investment to manage this. I don't see a positive return. So should I continue trying to manage it when it's costing me a lot of money and not seeing a good return on that? Escalations are also very common. As you may know, a lot of suppliers are probably small suppliers that are being kind of forced to follow a very complex process to become registered as an active supplier for big companies, and they struggle with that a lot, which means if the onboarding is delayed, probably the delivery of the product or the service will be delayed, the purchase order as well, the invoicing and the payment. So all that chain of delays that always happen turn into a lot of escalations and a lot of inquiries from stakeholders and from suppliers about the status of their event. Another important one is that it's probably a misconception. People think that, okay, it's tail spend, it's low value, we will not be able to generate any savings there. But the truth is that there's a big opportunity to generate cost savings in the tail, and we will talk about that in some of the next slides. And the feeling that there's lack of control over the tail spend is also something to take into consideration. Stakeholders might start awarding business directly to suppliers. They might be purchasing with a business card that it's not meant for purchasing products or services. Maybe it's just for travel expenses, but they have one and they say, why not? I will try. If it works, then problem solved. I'm purchasing quickly and fast. Uh, and the last one is that depending on the industry, I would say probably this is not something that will be applicable to all the participants here, but a lot of industries really have a lot of one-off suppliers, especially companies that have, for example, manufacturing plants. You will see that each manufacturing plant might have different suppliers and that those are changing year over year a lot. Some of our customers have experienced year over year change of 65% of their entire tail supplier database. So that's a pretty large number. So these are the main ones. I think most of our customers are sharing those. If you have any others, feel free to send through the Q&A or the chat. This is very interesting too. Like 70% of the users, and when we say users, it could be a supplier, it could be an internal stakeholder, it could be a manager. Like 70% of the escalations that procurement receives are often related to tail spend. So this is a pretty large number. If you find a way to manage your tail spend more efficiently, it means that you will be probably eliminating 70% of all the escalations you receive. And this is connected to what we were mentioning before. It might vary from industry to industry, but in average, like 60% of the suppliers that are being onboarded within the tail spend programs are going to be one-offs. That means that uh, that supplier will only be onboarded to deliver services or products to the company just once, and then they were not going to be used again. So when you think that that supplier will have to undergo a very lengthy onboarding process just to deliver services or products once, tells you that, okay, there might be a more efficient way to deal with those one-off suppliers. Um, there are different ways to approach the tail spend. I think this is a very great summary um, that tells you, know, for example, if I want to manage my tail spend internally, how do I do it? Okay, you can hire internal resources to take care of those transactions. Could be a good approach if your tail is not that big or if you don't have a lot of transactions. But as the tail continues to grow, probably, you know, that model will not become cost effective for you. The more people you have to put on to deal with transactions that might be two, three, four, $5,000, at some point it will not be cost efficient to do that. There are alternatives to that. The most common ones would be to try to identify and implement technology that is focused on tail spend. There are a lot of great sourcing technologies out there in the market that could be a good fit. Some of them specialize in specific categories as well. So if you have a MRO needs, you might have a one SaaS solution that is going to be probably perfect for that need. And other ones are oriented to the purchasing of SaaS or software solutions. So if you are interested in learning a bit more about each of these options, feel free to drop an email afterwards and we will be happy to connect with you. Uh, an advantage of managing it internally is that the entire spend control stays in-house. I mean, you don't have to deal with any third parties, you don't have to deal with suppliers. Whatever you implement, you are managing in-house, so you have like a full visibility of what's going on. On the other hand, when you rely on procurement experts, it's more likely that they will be able to show you a positive ROI in whatever is being implemented. Also because they have experts that know how to manage these processes. Some companies that deliver solutions for tail already come with technology, so you don't really have to go out yourself to purchase technology. The solution that you purchase from a tail spend expert will already include most likely technology. So that's a saving that you have in terms of investment in technology, which will make your ROI higher. And which are the negative things of managing something in-house? As I mentioned before, it's probably going to be expensive if you try to build an internal solution that it's not leveraging a lot of technology. And if you decide to leverage a lot of technology, you will have to directly pay for it. And that's where typically when a company is running an internal assessment, they are not seeing a tail spend strategy generating a positive ROI. Another thing is tail. I mean, and this is a common issue that all companies face. Like tail is never a priority, or it has not been a priority for a very long time. I think luckily in the last 3 to 5 years, there has been a bigger focus on saying, hey, recognizing that there is an issue with tail and that there's also an opportunity with tail. Like managing your tail is not a synonym of wasting money or having to spend money on something that is useless. Actually, today we are able to prove that uh, having an efficient management of your tail spend can actually generate a positive ROI for the company. And the last one, of course, all the technologies that companies might have today, um, let's say their ERPs or any technology they might have, is probably oriented for procurement in general. So it's not going to be a technology that has been specifically built to deal with tail spend. So trying to adapt the management of a tail spend uh, requirement or supplier through the regular channels that a company has, it's going to be complicated. And it's similar to what I was mentioning before. Like if you are a one-time supplier that is going to come in to deliver goods or services for a very short period of time, and you have to undergo the full onboarding process, exactly the same process that a large supplier that will be delivering services for 3, 5, 6 million dollars has to undergo, there's no logic there. Like why a supplier with whom you will spend $5,000 just once have to go or undergo the same exact onboarding process that a $5 million supplier has to go through. So those are the main pros and cons of implementing an internal solution. I don't know, Kate, if there's anything you want to add there.
I think it was perfect. Definitely, what I would like to also talk about is that there are many tail solutions on the market, right? There is many technologies on the market, but there is not one single solution that will solve all the tail problem for good, right? Um, it has to be mixture. It has to be mixture that is customized to the problem, to respond to a problem to a specific company, right? So we used to have that question or hear that question a lot from companies, from the clients. Hey, asking us like how we could, hey, how we can solve our third problem, right? There is not one tool that will solve that, and there is not simple answer how to do that. And I think you will talk about that, Hoa, in the next slides, right? But I'm very happy that we started to talk about it, that we started to explain it, because I think tail spend is underestimated topic in any company. As you said, right? When there is a strategy built for any company, the tail spend is, on the bottom on the strategy list. And what we see is that it has a huge impact of the procurement and the company itself, right? Because it can generate a very positive ROI when it's properly handled. It can generate a lot of cost savings, a lot of efficiency can bring into the process. Buyers, internal buyers, can finally focus on what matters the most for the company, what is strategic, right? And with many of those that we are working with, they are spending so much time on trying to solve cases that are low value. So they don't have enough time to focus on building relationship with stakeholders or building relationship with strategic suppliers. So um, I know that the first thought might be, hey, let's handle it by ourselves, right? Well, let's do. We can do that. Of course, you can do that. Every company can do that, but the level of investment you have to do, and I'm not talking about investment into the tool, I'm talking about investment into the people, because you will have a lot of people to handle tail spend. You will have to change the process, as how you said. uh, it cannot be the same approach. You cannot have the same process and the same approach for the tailspend supplier like you have with the strategic one. So you should have some simplified onboarding process. Your tools also has to be customized to approach differently the tail supplier. And of course, the investment into the know-how is also there, because for the companies, for the company buyers, it's always more important to focus on the strategic spend and strategic supplier, not the tail one. So while I understand that companies can handle and try to handle their internally the tail spend, I think it's I think everyone should consider to ask for help and see how the third party can support them in achieving their goals faster and more efficient.
Awesome. Thank you, Kate. Yeah, I think that's a nice insight. I mean, going a bit beyond what is shown here in the slide, but very, very valuable too. As you mentioned, the market today offers a lot of different options that maybe if any of the participants here is like a procurement manager and is tasked with the option of implementing or at least assessing, evaluating what they could possibly do with the tail spend in your company, well, there are a lot of different options. So we are going to walk you through each of these very quickly. Uh, a purchasing card or a virtual card might be a good solution when we are talking about expenses or day-to-day small expenses, office expenses. But there's a problem with that. When you are purchasing using a card, everything goes outside the procurement policies. So there's no purchase order. So whenever you run a spend report, then you are not going to see any of this spend. And the second one, and probably most critical one, is that you are purchasing with a card and there are no terms and conditions governing that commercial relationship with that customer. Or if they are going to be probably the supplier's terms and conditions. If you're purchasing through an online platform, I'm pretty sure you will have to accept supplier's terms and conditions. And that goes against the procurement policies of pretty much every single company. Every company wants to work under their own T's and C's, so that presents an issue. Of course, when we are purchasing day-to-day expenses, it's not a great deal. I mean, you most likely will not have any issues when you're purchasing office supplies, for example. But the problem is, that people, once they receive a purchasing card or a virtual card, they use it for the scope that it's originally meant to, and then they start purchasing stuff outside of the scope. And when there's no, when procurement is being engaged late and there's no other option, exceptions start to be approved, and then you see the scope of the P card growing beyond what it's supposed to be, and that's when these additional risks start to appear. Catalogs are also another good option. I mean, any company that has an ERP system could potentially have catalogs. Uh, ERPs like Ariba or Coupa already offer catalogs, and catalogs are great, mostly for goods. I mean, when we are talking about recurrent and repetitive purchases of specific items, it's great to already have them cataloged. And the benefit is that you don't need to have procurement uh, interaction to purchase from these catalogs. I mean, a catalog is something that procurement has already reviewed and approved, so you as a stakeholder can directly go into your ERP, select the items that you want to purchase, and the purchase request is going to be automatically generated, and then only your management and finance, depending on the amounts, are going to approve. Like, you don't really need to engage procurement to proceed with the purchase. The downside part of catalogs is that probably when you are trying to purchase services or spot buys, something that you don't purchase recurrently, it's really hard to get a service categorized under a catalog, because the service will really depend on the scope you want for it. So it kind of gets complicated. And while you might have an hourly rate maybe for a specific type of service or resource that you are trying to contract with, you most likely will need to have interaction with the supplier and with procurement um, to generate the final scope for that. So it's great for goods. Today, I haven't really seen a great option for services or spot buys out there in the market, but there are some key players that are advancing towards that. So once again, if you have any interest in learning a bit more about that, feel free to drop an email after the webinar. Um, eProc software in general is helping you with the spend visibility, making sure all the data is in one place. But again, similarly to what we mentioned before, an eProc software is going to be oriented to procurement in general. And when you have to start dealing with small suppliers that have to undergo all that registration process through the eProc software, you will have to uh, realize that it will take time. If it's ever finished, it will take time because these suppliers are not really used to work with these complex processes. Another alternative are the procure to pay buying channels. I mean, there are out there some key players in the market delivering only P2P services, and it's a really great way to reduce what we call the tail of the tail kind of supplier database. Essentially, it's great. You don't have to onboard suppliers, of course. That's going to be managed through the P2P process. You can somehow standardize the terms and conditions that suppliers will be working under, but there are other areas that a pure procure to pay solution will not cover, and it's on the um, source cost saving side. I mean, yeah, you will get operational cost savings because you don't have to onboard those suppliers. The P2P vendor is going to take care of that, but you are losing the opportunity to generate sourced cost savings. As we were explaining before, there's great opportunity to optimize how much you are paying for your tail spend purchases. And sourcing automation, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of different SaaS solutions out there in the market. Some of them are oriented to specific categories, but that's just it. I mean, it's a sourcing solution. It might help you source more efficiently, faster, get more cost savings. But at the end of the day, when we are talking about tail spend and you're talking about thousands of suppliers, at the end of the day, you will have to onboard those suppliers into your system. If they have questions, you will have to respond to their inquiries. So there is a benefit, yes, but if you want to base your award decisions purely on which is the best supplier, then um, you might need to start onboarding new suppliers into our platform. So when you have a full source to pay solution, you are tackling pretty much all of this. And if you do a sourcing event and the stakeholder, you present your proposals to the stakeholder and you tell them, hey, we have these two proposals from existing suppliers and these other three. from new suppliers out there in the market, but don't worry, just choose the one that fits your need best, because the onboarding process is going to be taken care of by our team, and that's going to be quick, easy, 5 business days. The supplier is fully onboarded. So make sure you base your decision purely on what you need and what you like, and not thinking, oh, if I choose one of the new suppliers, it will take 3 months for them to get onboarded and I need to receive my product or service in 1 month. So I will just choose one of the others. So a full source to pay solution, or a master vendor solution as we typically know it out there in the market, is covering most of these points here, and it's like an integral solution for Tailspin. Um, this is typical. I'm pretty sure you have seen this graphic before. On the left side, we have the strategic spend that is typically retained to be managed in-house by our customers. In some opportunities, SDI is actually delivering a buy desk solution that is helping our customers' strategic sourcing team when they don't have enough bandwidth, or when there are certain categories that they don't consider to be core to their business. SDI is delivering strategic support outside the master vendor solution, of course. So everything is still done through our customer systems and using their contract templates, etc. Just worth mentioning, it's not part of the tail management, but just in case you ever have a need in with your strategic spend, you can reach out to SDI as well for support. And then moving to the tail spend, I mean, generally speaking, we have like 3 main buckets of spend within the tail. Let's start for the smallest one on the right, what we consider to be the tail of the tail. Uh, Essentially, this is great spend to be put under catalogs when we are talking about repetitive purchases of goods, as we saw before. But also a P card or a V card for specific categories where we see there's a lot of very, very small spend, as I mentioned, office supplies or promotional items, etc. Those are good categories that typically have a lot of recurrent purchases. Sometimes you cannot predict when you will need something, so it's an easy and quick way to purchase stuff you need. Moving a little bit to the left with the spot buys, okay, this is where, okay, we start to see recurrent purchases. Maybe we are purchasing the same items very often, and the best solution would be to catalog as much as you can those items from a procurement perspective, so that you don't have to deal with those purchases on a case by case basis. So probably it will take a little bit of time to catalog them as a procurement person, but moving forward, every single time someone purchases without reaching out to you, you are generating efficiencies. So thinking long term, it's the right move to maybe try to assess if there's opportunity to build some catalogs internally. And on the other hand, for those purchases that might be one-offs, or could be like some services that you don't purchase regularly, uh, SDI's master vendor solution on the procure to pay side makes a lot of sense. We take care of the onboarding of the supplier. We make sure that they work under your specific company terms and conditions. We do a supplier due diligence process just to make sure, we are, or that we and you also are going to be doing business with a legit company. So that's the solution that makes the most sense for spot buys. Moving to the orange side, we are talking about the middle of the tail, maybe requirements between 10 to 25 or 10 to 50K. And then we have the head of the tail moving from 25 or 50K as a starting point, and could go up to really 250,000 or 500,000, depending, on what the company considers to be their tail spend. Essentially, the approach might be a little bit different depending on where those thresholds are set. Uh, no company is setting these thresholds at the same levels. This is really an analysis that has to be done, and we will see that in the next slides, based on your company's structure, goals, and needs. But focusing here on what are the different solution approaches that we can offer for this, well, essentially for the middle of the tail, we are still recommending to go with the master vendor solution, the procure to pay that we just mentioned before. But on top of that, uh, we start to incorporate our source to pay solution, essentially trying to source some of these orders when we see that there's potential value of generating cost savings for our customer. And we do that through simplified sourcing. And as I mentioned before, we are leveraging as well technology to make this sourcing process quicker and more efficient. So just because SDI is going to be either negotiating or sourcing, it doesn't mean that the process will be delayed for stakeholders. If they need to purchase something quickly, we are going to probably be hitting those delivery targets that they have. Through technology, we are able to source this quickly, or at least get very quickly benchmarking information so that we can go to the pre-selected supplier and negotiate better rates or better terms. Then for the head of the tail, we typically engage our buy desk solution. This is where things start to get a bit more complex, but this is something that SDI is supporting today for our customers. Essentially, when we are talking about more complex purchases or longer term engagements with suppliers, so we'll have an annual contract, or it could be a multi-year agreement or a very complex service. Those typically require the execution of a master services agreement, just to make sure that our customer will be protected and that we are minimizing risks as much as possible. Maybe the supplier will be working with our customers intellectual property, or they will be having access to their premises or systems, etc. So we want to make sure that we are contractually covered for that relationship. And on the other hand, our buy desk solution is also executing statements of work where we are clearly outlining uh, what are the responsibilities of the supplier, what are going to be the deliverables, what's going to be the acceptance criteria, what are going to be the milestones and the delivery dates for each of the phases of the project. So it gets a little bit more complex, but the way we think it is, okay, the head of the tail has a great potential to generate cost savings. As we can see there in the bottom, where we see the cost benefits, that 8 to 12 that we are listing there is an average of what we are saving for our customers when we are managing the head of the tail. So there's a lot of potential to generate savings. And on the other hand, we are also generating or mitigating all these potential risks that might appear if you are just going with a simplified onboarding, not agreeing to any terms and conditions with that supplier. So essentially, there's a great opportunity. Also, moving to the mid of the tail, we are talking about a 3 to 7% cost savings in average, which is also pretty significant. So overall, I think the management of the tail spend, if you focus on these three different buckets of spend, can generate a positive ROI for a company. Moving to how to start, like if you are a procurement professional and you say, hey, I need to start thinking of what to do with my tail spend, like what can I do? Well, the first thing you have to do is to start a tail spend analysis. So you will typically gather all the spend information that you have. Most likely it will come from a lot of different sources. We understand, that large and global companies might not all be working within the same uh, eProc system, but understanding the tail spend is, or the spend in general, not just the tail, but understanding your company's spend is the first point. You need to know how much you are spending and where in order to define your strategy. So that's the most important part. Then probably, I don't think it's listed here, but another important factor is that you have to uh, put all that global spend in context with your structure. Like you need to understand what your structure is. If you're spending $100 million and you have a team of 10 buyers, you have like 5 strategic buyers and 5 tactical buyers. Well, great. Maybe you're going to be defining tail as purchase is below 25K. If you have $100 million of spend and your procurement structure is one strategic buyer only, well, that person most likely will need much more help than another company that has a structure of 10 people to manage the same spend. So the analysis always has to come hand by hand with your structure and your goals. I mean, what do you want to achieve? Do you want to just get rid of all the small suppliers and you don't really care about generating savings? You just don't want to take care of the onboardings? Well, that's a valid objective. For some companies, that might be the main objective. Now, there's much more you can do when you're moving to the middle of the tail and the head of the tail. You can start really generating a positive ROI out of the implementation of a tail spend program. Uh, Basically, what we help our customers with, if they don't do this analysis themselves, is okay, let's define these clip levels, what's going to be considered the tail of the tail, the middle of the tail, the head of the tail, and what's going to be considered strategic. We help them define those thresholds, and then we, based on the type of spend too, help them uh, assess different market solutions for each of these thresholds, explain them, what are the pros and cons of going ahead with each of these potential solutions, and then our customers have the opportunity to say, okay, SDI, thank you for helping me with the assessment. I understand that these are my options or your recommendations of the different options that I can implement to manage my tail. So we are sometimes engaged by potential customers just to help them do this assessment, because then, it might take time for them to go back internally, present this idea, gather the approvals, etc. So this is something that happens also very often for companies that haven't really done anything with their tail. They're just starting with it and it might take time. The goal for us is to give that procurement person all the tools he or she will need to go back internally and present this. And if possible, of course, if we are being shared more information about the internal structure and how processes work, we help them build an ROI analysis. As I mentioned before, we will have what we call the operational cost savings, that are going to be the savings generated by our customer not managing a lot of operational tasks, because those are being delegated to the master vendor. And on the other hand, we will have the sourced cost savings that I was just mentioning before, could vary from 3% to 12%. The second phase, of course, first you start with the analysis. At some point, you might decide, hopefully, to implement a solution for your tail spend. And if our customers decide to come back to SDI and say, hey guys, I want you to manage the implementation of my tail spend solution, of course, that's also something we do. Essentially, we are going to be bringing our team of procurement experts that are going to be fully dedicated to implementing the solution that you have decided to implement. It could be a master vendor, it could be the implementation of a catalog system only, it could be the master vendor oriented only to procure to pay, or it could be a tactical sourcing team. You just want to have, a team helping you with the head of the tail, but still working under your own systems. You don't want to bring in a third party to be connected to your eProc and processes. You just want to start generating savings from your head of the tail through sourcing only. That's perfectly valid too. That's something SDI can help you with. And we help your teams work on the change management, basically building the new processes. How is it going to work moving forward with a master vendor solution or a tactical sourcing solution, whatever it is that you decide to implement? We help you build that change management documentation, and we also help you with all the communication that is going to be issued towards stakeholders and suppliers. The results, sorry, Kate, can we go back 1 second? So the results of implementing the tail solution most likely always are going to be in trying to reduce the cost of each transaction that is being processed, extracting cost savings from tail spend, either operational or source cost savings. And of course, it's going to be lowering your risks, as I explained before, because we are standardizing the process and making sure that suppliers work under our customers' terms and conditions. Um, if we decide to implement a full tailspend management solution, then SDI, of course, we are delivering the master vendor solution that I was just mentioning in the previous slides. So essentially, after the implementation phase is finalized, that typically takes from 12 to 16 weeks, really depending on how the process works with our customers. SDI, of course, can deliver that. And our implementation team is then uh, passing all those responsibilities to our delivery team, and the delivery team is going to be responsible literally for managing the day-to-day um, tailspend program. The results that we expect from the implementation of the tailspend management program, especially during the first months, is to improve the customer satisfaction of stakeholders, but also on the supplier side as well. We want to make sure that they can purchase what they need on a quickly way, that they see a value add from SDI helping them to purchase what they need. And the same goes for the suppliers. They see that there's someone helping them to get registered as a supplier quickly, that they have an easy way to submit their invoices for payment, they have an easy way to see all their purchase orders, and whenever they have any questions, they can reach out to our operational team or our procurement service center team, who is going to be providing them support with anything they need. Uh, when we are talking about large companies, it's a bit hard, for the small procurement structure to be able to help every single supplier that they have. Of course, as a strategic buyer, you will try to prioritize your key and strategic suppliers, and that's fine. What SDI is trying to do is give that same strategic treatment or service that strategic buyers give to strategic suppliers. We try to do the same with the tail so that everyone has a positive procurement experience. Um, Essentially, our tailspend solution includes a lot of different items. I think we have been discussing about all of these throughout this webinar, but essentially SDI leverages e-sourcing powered AI powered technology, for our programs. When we see that it's a good fit, we will bring in these SaaS solutions to help us deliver like a more efficient service to you. And that's one of the benefits. I mean, you don't really need to go out and contract with these technology partners yourself. It can be done through SDI, and SDI will implement it or will leverage it on your behalf for the program. We can also deliver catalog solutions. If you don't want to implement catalogs directly within your eProc system, or your eProc system doesn't have that capability, or you don't have the bandwidth to handle it in your system, or you just want to fully delegate it to someone else, our solution also includes catalogs, so we can maintain uh, catalogs with your tail suppliers, and all the purchasing process will be done through SDI systems. We also offer V-card solutions, so essentially for lower value purchases where there's literally very, very minimum risk and things needs to be purchased quickly, we have a solution for that as well. As I mentioned before, we have tactical sourcing. Um, we can directly help you if you want to start as an initial step saying, hey, let's source the head of the tail. Let's not discuss about the master vendor. That might be like a second phase in our approach of assessing what we can do with tail spend. We can put in a team of tactical buyers to help you with that head of the tail, or with that mid of the tail as well. uh, we have a buy desk solution. This is like a more strategic sourcing team that can help you, with strategic spend, can help you with contract management, revision of master services agreements, executions of statements of work as well. And these two, the tactical sourcing and the buy desk solution, can be implemented as standalone services, meaning that they will continue to work through your systems, or they can be incorporated into our master vendor solution through the source to pay component, basically. So the master vendor can be procure to pay only, where we just onboard suppliers, we do the due diligence, we ensure that they will be working under your T's and C's, and we just process the order, or we can incorporate all the sourcing services that I was mentioning before. The procurement service center is also connected to the ProcOps support, the last bullet there. Essentially, it's our team of operation agents that are available for our stakeholders and our suppliers anytime they need it. They can reach out by submitting a ticket, by sending an email to our support email address. There's a phone number as well for them to call. In pretty much every country where we deliver the master vendor solution, there's a local phone number for stakeholders and suppliers to be able to reach out to SDI. So we are not asking them to call a hotline from United States if the supplier is located in Germany or France or Spain. They are going to always be calling a local number to get immediate support. And we also have the chat function. You know, they can log into our vendor management portal and submit any questions they have directly through the chat as well. So they have a lot of different ways to communicate with our team. And our solution also includes easy integration. As I mentioned before, the catalog uh, is part of the punch out options that we offer. A stakeholder logs in into their eProc tool and they want to purchase something from a catalog, so they are punched out to SDI system where our suppliers are maintaining all their catalogs. Uh, Essentially, it could also turn into a punch out to SDI's intake portal. If your eProc is not mature enough, you can say place an order to the master vendor and you will be redirected to our system. You place the order there and our team is going to be taking care of that. I see there's a question asking what's punch out. Basically, a punch out means that the process will continue through a different system. So if in your company they use Ariba and you want to raise a purchase request, today you can go to Ariba and you finish all the process directly within Ariba until you submit your purchase request. With a punch out, at some point of the process, you will be redirected to an external system. So as I was mentioning with the catalogs, you might log in into Ariba, and when you say, I want to place a catalog order, when you click in the catalog option, you will be redirected to SDI system. You select all the items you want from the SDI catalogs, and once you finalize, you go back to Ariba, and the PR continues its regular process. But essentially, is moving into an external system. Hope that clears the doubt there. We also have automation. When we are talking about tail, think that for some customers, we might be processing literally more than 45,000 orders per year. So having automation in place is super important for us, for SDI to receive every single one of those purchase orders and upload them into our systems, for SDI to submit our own SDI invoices into customers' system, and the same with payments, to identify them, to apply them to invoices. So ultimately, we want all this administrative process as automated as possible. First of all, to minimize potential errors that might arise from human interaction, and also because the main goal is for our teams to be able to be dedicated to more value add activities, being there for stakeholders, being there for suppliers, helping them when they have doubts. All the administrative portion of the work, we try to automate as much as we can. And as I was mentioning before, our master vendor system, SDI is currently leveraging the industry leading platform Esker. That's the platform that we essentially leverage for all our day-to-day activities, from onboarding suppliers to issuing orders to them, reception of invoices, and generation of any kind of reports that are issued to our customers.
We have few more slides, but what I see this those slides are more focused on the master vendor solution, and we have only 5 minutes left. So I was thinking we can organize another webinar that will be dedicated to master vendor solution separately, so we can dive into the topic. We can go through the questions like what is vendor master vendor. We can go through the through the workflows, how does it look like, give examples and so on, because that is very interesting topic and I don't think we will be able to cover that in 5 minutes. But if you agree with that, I would just propose to organize a separate webinar
Totally,
on
totally.
that.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Um, do you, do you have any questions? Is there any question related to what we just said? Any specific question about the tail spend, about technologies out there, about the topic itself? We will be very happy to cover it next 4 minutes.
And for those that probably will be seeing the recording later on, if you were not part of the live webinar, feel free to reach out to us and ask for the copy of this, because we also have a very interesting case study with one of our customers that implemented the master vendor solution. So if you are interested in learning a bit more about what their needs were, what their challenges were, and what we did in order to help them, I think that's going to be like a good starting point for someone that is trying to learn what can be possibly done to start tackling their tailspin.
Perfect, thank you. I can see um, there is happiness there after the webinar. So the the whole goal was to give you more information about what we are doing, why we are doing that, and how we are doing that. You know, how we are supporting our clients with the tailspin problem. So hopefully a lot of questions you might have were answered. And if not, as I said, let us know, contact me, contact Hoa, and we'll be very happy to schedule another session about this topic, because it's so huge. It's so yeah, there is so many things going on there that we need more time to really dive into that. So, and it has to we have to talk about that. To be honest with you, I see we observe the market and we can see that a lot of companies do have problem with tail spend. There is not a single company that I think would not have tail, right, Hoa? I think everyone has the tail.
Yes, I mean, then what kind of solution you implement to tackle it?
Hmm.
Maybe the master vendor might not be the right approach. I mean, some
Yeah,
tails might be so small that, maybe with one fully dedicated buyer and one sourcing technology to help you might be the right solution. It's not like, and we have recommended that to a couple of these potential customers that reach out to us. It's not that we will always try to sell you a master vendor solution. I mean, might not be the right fit for every single one of the companies that are reaching out to us. So that's why I think it's worth exploring all these different options and then doing a proper analysis of what your spend is, what your structure is, as I mentioned before, and then deciding. You might have the right structure to manage it in house too. I mean, really depends. So it's very interesting. I mean, I don't think there's one solution that fits all companies. There's always going to be some
exactly.
customization to be done in terms of
Yeah,
what options do you pick for managing your tail, which technologies you pick, which are the different thresholds that you put, what's considered tactical, what's considered tail, what's considered strategic. And thresholds might even vary from category to category, from region to region. So there's a lot to do, and how efficient you make it, it really depends on you really understanding all the different options that are out there in the market, and then partnering with someone that can help you implement or even review that analysis. You can start doing your analysis and then reach out to an expert to help you validate that, or you can reach out to an expert from the very beginning to help you with all that analysis too.
Perfect. Thank you. So once again, thank you, Ha. Thank you,
My
everyone,
pleasure.
for joining us. And yeah, if you have any question, let us know.
Thank you everyone for participating. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.